Cisco learners' generic appliances. Cisco learners and students often find themselves in need of practicing on Cisco hardware. Preparing labs and real-world scenarios is an essential part of the learning process for a CCNA, CCNP and CCIE etc. candidates. Students are always in need of Cisco routers, switches and firewalls to practice, not just for certification, but for preparing for real-world problems. Yet, learners and students often find it difficult to obtain such enterprise-grade hardware, because of their own limited budget and relatively high prices of such advanced equipment. So far, simulators such as Cisco's Packet Tracer have made it more than easy for students to create virtual networks and solve networking scenarios while working on virtual routers and switches that mimic the real hardware. However, simulators provide only a subset of the functionalities of real Cisco hardware. Mainly, simulators support only the core commands and protocols available on the real hardware. This is usually sufficient for CCNA learners, but often not enough for CCNP, CCSP and higher certification seekers. On the other hand, emulators exist, like GNS3. GNS3 supports the full functionalities of Cisco hardware because it uses the same BIOS images as the Cisco hardware. However, GNS3 still doesn't support the full range of Cisco series hardware. For example, the new 1800 and 2800 series are not supported. Cisco's access points and wireless LAN controllers are not supported either. There is also no way to run any Cisco switch iOS in GNS3. And by the time these limitations are gone, Cisco would probably have released a new series of hardware. Leave alone the CPU intensiveness of GNS3. At the end of the day, it's well known that nothing can really match real Cisco hardware. As a result, Cisco learners always try to obtain access to Cisco hardware by all means. Either buying used, old, or end-of-life routers and switches, or renting them. And even those are not relatively cheap, knowing that sometimes they need to buy more than 4 routers, for CCNP and higher certifications. Buying old equipment puts the Cisco learners community a step behind the real world. They would be always running old iOSs. A gap is evident between the learner and what he should learn. Looking at another side, network administrators usually find themselves in need of testing their configurations and changes before applying them to their company's network. Applying such configurations before testing obviously has its risks. Not all companies have the leverage of having extra hardware just for testing. Proposed solution. We propose a generic multi-purpose, high-functionality, low-performance appliances for Cisco learners, students and testers. High functionality in the sense that a single appliance can run all iOS software versions, or at least most of them. Low performance in the sense that the bandwidth offered by these appliances is very limited. This is to cut down the costs, hence allowing relatively low prices for community purchase. On the other hand, this will ensure that those appliances cannot replace high-end Cisco equipment for the enterprise. Students don't need bandwidth most of the time. Students don't need performance. Most labs and tests done by students are connectivity and functionality tests, not quality of service tests. Students need functionality. They need a generic appliance that can run every type of iOS that Cisco have developed, giving them the opportunity to choose which software version to run. So, a router generic appliance can work as a 1700 router, as a 2600 router, a 3600, a 2800, etc. All the user has to do is to choose which iOS version to run, from a neat graphical user interface. The generic appliance should also be equipped with a relatively large flash memory, something like 2 or 3 gigabytes to store multiple iOSs. Or the user can load the iOSs via a USB drive. On the other hand, a switch generic appliance follows the same idea.